There was a lot of language that was unacceptable.
It kicked off as golf's grandest spectacle, but ended as pure chaos no one could have predicted. The 2025 Ryder Cup at Bethpage Black wasn't just loud, it was electric, unhinged, and unforgettable. Cameras caught every swing, every roar, every tense handshake, but what they didn't catch tells the real story. The kind that happens when pride, pressure, and ego collide behind the cheers and viral highlights. Bethpage Black was a monster that week, a battlefield disguised as a golf course, buzzing with America's rowdiest fans ready for blood. Team USA came in loud and fearless, while Team Europe moved like a storm, quiet, calculated, and cold. And right in the middle of it all stood Rory McIlroy, the man carrying not just Europe's hopes, but the emotional baggage of Rome 2023 still heavy on his back. At first, the crowd's chants sounded playful, harmless noise echoing through the fairways. But by Friday afternoon, that fun energy turned venomous. The cheers morphed into jeers, and suddenly Rory wasn't just facing opponents, he was facing a wall of hostility. The same fans who once called him golf's gentleman were now taking cheap shots about his divorce and his stance against LIV Golf. It wasn't just trash talk, it was personal. But Rory didn't back down for a second. He answered with his irons and silenced them with his putter. When he drained that 20-foot birdie, he didn't just score, he stared down an entire nation. That glare said everything. Say what you want, I'm still him. Yet the peace didn't last long. Every hole turned into a verbal minefield, each step testing the limits of golf's so-called decorum. The Ryder Cup wasn't just a competition anymore, it was a psychological war. By Saturday, the line wasn't just crossed, it was shattered like a driver off concrete. The Ryder Cup had stopped being about birdies and bogeys. It had turned into a full-blown emotional battlefield. One man against an army of hecklers. The air at Bethpage Black was so thick with tension you could slice it with a wedge, and everyone watching knew something was about to explode. Day one's friction had only been the spark. By midday Saturday, that spark had become a wildfire.
Oh, come on.
Come on, man!
Seriously.
The crowd wasn't watching golf anymore. They were performing chaos. It was like every fan wanted their viral moment. Every shout another dagger thrown toward Rory McIlroy. What started as teasing had mutated into something darker. Fans weren't mocking his game anymore. They were coming for his life. One guy screamed, "F you, Rory!" mid-backswing, and someone's phone caught the whole thing crystal clear. Within hours, it was everywhere online. Millions of views, millions of comments, and one shared thought. This wasn't banter, this was bullying. Even the commentators were losing control. Jim Bones McKay could barely keep his voice steady, muttering that the crowd was getting out of hand. Others said it felt more like a football riot than a golf match. Chants about his ex-wife, his accent, his past feud with Patrick Reed. It was open season on Rory. Every step he took came with another insult, another jab, another test of how far he could bend before he broke. And then he snapped. You could feel it before it happened, that slow simmer of rage bubbling beneath his calm exterior. Rory paused mid-putt, lifted his head, and locked eyes with the crowd. That stare could have burned through steel. For a moment, it was dead silent. Then came the muttered curses, the clenched jaw, the fury he'd been holding in for years. Within minutes, clips flooded every platform. Rory loses it at Bethpage. The headlines wrote themselves. The internet didn't just get a reaction, it got the rawest moment of Rory's career. But here's what the world missed. Behind that flash of anger wasn't just rage, it was exhaustion. Years of carrying Europe's pride, years of being golf's lightning rod. The man expected to feel everything for everyone. It had worn him down. Saturday bled into Sunday, and Rory wasn't just facing Team USA anymore. He was fighting the noise, the hate, the weight of fame pressing on his chest. And then came that moment, the one that would define the entire 2025 Ryder Cup, maybe even Rory McIlroy himself. His entire legacy came down to one hole, the 16th at Bethpage Black. Saturday afternoon, tension so thick, it felt like the air itself was vibrating. Rory McIlroy crouched over his ball, laser-focused, the weight of Europe on his shoulders. Whispers rippled through the gallery. Nervous, hungry, mean, and then, out of nowhere, the heckle that broke the silence. Loud, sharp, personal. Rory froze mid-stance, backed off, and for a second, the entire crowd leaned in like sharks smelling blood. Then came the explosion. "Guys, shut the fuck up!" Those words cut through the noise like a thunderclap. Gasps everywhere. Some cheered, others booed, but everyone's phone was already up. In 3 seconds, Rory McIlroy went from champion to headline. That clip rocketed around the world before he even walked off the green. Millions of views, millions of opinions. It wasn't just a meltdown, it was a man breaking point blank under the crushing weight of pride, pressure, and provocation. But here's the twist that had everyone's jaws on the floor. Seconds later, Rory reset. Calm face, deep breath, smooth stroke, putt drops. The crowd erupted in boos, Europe exploded in cheers. It was pure cinematic perfection, a meltdown and a mic drop in one. The internet went feral, half calling it legendary, the other half a disgrace to the game. Former pros rushed to defend him, saying Rory spoke for every golfer who's ever been pushed too far. Others fired back, calling him a hypocrite and dragging up clips from his fiery past. But the video didn't care. It had already become its own monster, spreading across TikTok, Twitter, Reels, everywhere. That unfiltered 3-second blast of emotion turned into the defining image of the 2025 Ryder Cup. And just when you thought it couldn't get messier, it did. The Ryder Cup didn't just cross the line, it fell off the edge. What started as heckles turned into hazards, and not the kind you find on a scorecard. Late Saturday, as Rory left the 17th green, chaos hit a new low. A drink, yes, an actual drink came flying from the crowd and splashed across his wife Erica's hat. The footage was shaky, chaotic, and instantly viral. Bethpage wasn't just wild anymore. It was out of control. It hit X, formerly Twitter, within minutes. The clip was everywhere. Erica wiping her face, Rory's expression flipping from shock to fury to disbelief in real time. The crowd didn't know whether to gasp or cheer. It was pure pandemonium. Security scrambled while fans scattered. And what lingered wasn't order. It was chaos. No arrests, no clear culprit. Just that haunting 10-second clip looping endlessly online, turning Rory into both the hero and villain of his own live-action soap opera. But this time, it wasn't about pride, it was about respect. The energy shifted. You could feel it. Jon Rahm and Shane Lowry rushed to Rory's side, both visibly furious. Rahm was even caught muttering, "This is too far." Within hours, the PGA released a carefully worded statement condemning the behavior, but conveniently left out any names. That silence spoke volumes. It wasn't just a few bad fans anymore. It was the whole atmosphere gone rogue. The Ryder Cup had lost control of its crowd completely, yet somehow Rory didn't storm off, didn't throw his clubs, didn't say a word. He just walked with that cold, locked-in stare that screamed, "I'm done talking." His silence was deafening, louder than any swing, sharper than any insult. The drink might have missed his face, but the message was clear. Something sacred had snapped. The Ryder Cup's reputation was soaked, literally dripping on the turf in front of the cameras. And just when it seemed golf had hit rock bottom, it found a shovel, because Sunday brought the most ridiculous moment of all, the ducks. Yes, squeaky yellow ducks. Fans started squeezing them during Rory's backswing, those high-pitched squeaks echoing across Bethpage like deranged battle cries. You could see him pause mid-swing, disbelief on his face, before pointing straight at the culprits. Security had to drag at least 4 people out. But those ducks weren't random. They were mockery, a twisted joke aimed straight at Rory's nerves, a cruel reference to his so-called habit of cracking under pressure. But this time, no one was laughing. The scene was humiliating, ugly, and completely out of line. Even U.S. broadcasters had to admit the crowd had gone too far, calling it juvenile on live air. European players were furious, demanding tighter control. "It's golf, not a circus," one European caddy snapped into a hot mic, his voice cutting through the broadcast like a thunderclap. And just when you thought the drama had peaked, it didn't. The next viral moment was already brewing. It all came to a head when Rory McIlroy stopped mid-round and demanded a fan be kicked out after hearing a homophobic slur. Cameras caught the entire confrontation, his face a storm of rage and restraint. You could feel the discomfort ripple through the crowd. It was raw, real, and impossible to forget. At that point, the Ryder Cup wasn't about birdies or bogeys anymore. It had turned into a battle between civility and chaos. Through every insult, every cheap shot, every ugly moment, McIlroy never backed down. He burned with fury, yes, but he never folded. When Europe finally clinched the cup 16.5 to 11.5, there was no wild celebration, no chest-pounding victory scream, just Rory exhaling, drained. This wasn't about beating Team USA, it was about surviving them. When the dust settled and the champagne started flying, Rory finally spoke, and every word landed like a hammer. Calm, controlled, devastating. What happened this week, he said, is not acceptable. It wasn't anger. It was disappointment. The same man who faced chants, drinks, ducks, and now slurs had every right to lose it, yet he didn't. Instead, he chose grace under fire.
It's like disgraceful behaviour. And it's not to say that I don't agree with banter in the Ryder Cup. I think there should be banter. I think there should be support and a bit of abuse. But there is clearly a line that has...
At his post-tournament press conference, McIlroy called for a return to respect, saying, "I heard more abuse directed at me than cheers for us players." That line hit like a gut punch. Even Keegan Bradley, Team USA's captain, had to step up and publicly apologize, admitting the crowd had gone too far. For once, even the loudest fans couldn't deny it. This wasn't passion anymore, it was poison. And that's when the rumors started swirling. Whispers spread online that McIlroy had vowed never to play another US event again. Fact-checkers quickly debunked it, but honestly, could you blame people for believing it? After a week like that, it sounded plausible. Every leaked clip, from the shut the fucks up moment to the drink incident, dominated the headlines. Millions watched, rewatched, dissected, and argued over every frame. Some fans called him a folk hero, the man who stood up when the sport lost its class, while others claimed he'd crossed a line that golf would never recover from. Either way, Rory McIlroy had turned the 2025 Ryder Cup into something bigger than golf itself. By Monday morning, the hangover wasn't from champagne. It was from controversy. Sports talk shows, morning news anchors, and late-night hosts all had the same headline: "Did the Ryder Cup go too far?" The clips wouldn't stop playing. The heckles, the drink, the ducks, the slur. It was like golf's darkest reality show on loop. And in the middle of it all, Rory McIlroy stood tall, silent, and unshaken, while the world argued about what had just happened. Sponsors started panicking, whispering behind closed doors about brand safety and fan behavior. The PGA tried to spin it as isolated incidents, but no one was buying it. The truth was out. Golf had changed forever. Bethpage Black wasn't just a golf course anymore. It had become a symbol of what happens when sportsmanship collapses under social media's spotlight. Meanwhile, across the ocean, Europe treated Rory like a warrior returning from battle. Crowds gathered outside Belfast pubs just to watch replays of him draining that birdie after the heckle heard round the world. Memes turned into murals, and fans called him the Iron Nerve. The same man who once stood for composure had now become the face of defiance. But not everyone was cheering. American analysts fired back, accusing Rory of playing the victim and baiting the crowd. Debate panels went off the rails, half calling him a legend, the other half calling him soft. One sports host even shouted, "If you can't take the noise, stay home." That clip alone racked up millions of angry comments within hours. Then came the most shocking twist: leaked footage from the locker room showing Rory pacing, furious, before reportedly saying, "They broke golf today." Whether he actually said it or not didn't matter. The phrase became a movement. Hashtags like #TheyBrokeGolf and #RespectTheGame trended worldwide. Even players who'd stayed silent during the chaos started speaking out, calling for major changes in fan control and on-course conduct. And just when everyone thought the saga was cooling down, it reignited. A new video surfaced showing another fan heckling Rory as he left the course on Sunday night. This time, security reacted instantly, tackling the man before he could even finish his sentence. The clip went viral, of course, with the internet exploding over how fast things had spiraled. By week's end, the Ryder Cup wasn't just a golf tournament, it was a global reckoning. Commentators called it the end of innocence for golf, while fans called it the most entertaining Ryder Cup ever. And somewhere in between stood Rory McIlroy, the hero, the villain, and the man who proved that even in golf, composure has its breaking point. By Monday morning, the hangover wasn't from champagne. It was from controversy. Every sports show, podcast, and late-night monologue carried the same headline. Did the Ryder Cup go too far? Those clips just wouldn't die. The heckles, the drink, the ducks, the slur. It was like golf's darkest reality show on repeat. And in the center of it all stood Rory McIlroy, stone-faced, exhausted, but unbroken. Sponsors started scrambling, whispering about brand safety and fan behavior. The PGA tried damage control, calling everything isolated incidents. But come on, nobody was buying that. Bethpage Black had become the battlefield where golf's reputation cracked under the pressure of modern fandom. The so-called gentleman's game had been dragged into the mud, and the world couldn't stop watching. Across the Atlantic, though, Rory wasn't seen as a victim. He was a warrior. Europe hailed him like a folk hero. Bars in Belfast replayed his birdie on loop, fans chanting his name like he'd just won a heavyweight fight. They called him the Iron Nerve, the man who faced the mob and didn't flinch. Murals popped up, and social media turned him into both a meme and a martyr. But not everyone saw him as a saint. American analysts went off saying he played the victim and couldn't handle the heat. Debate panels turned toxic, shouting matches breaking out over whether Rory was the problem or the warning sign. One commentator even barked, "If you can't take the noise, stay home." And that line alone lit up the internet like wildfire. Then came the locker room leak, the video showing Rory pacing, fists clenched, muttering words that fans swore were, "They broke golf today." Real or not, it didn't matter. That phrase became a movement. Number sign, "They broke golf," trended worldwide, echoing across every corner of the sport. Players who'd kept quiet suddenly spoke up, demanding change, while fans argued whether golf had finally gone too far or simply evolved into something darker. And just when it seemed like things might calm down, another clip surfaced. A fan screaming at Rory as he left the course Sunday night, only for security to take him down instantly. That video sealed it. The Ryder Cup had officially turned from competition to cultural crisis. Others branded Rory too emotional, but one thing was clear. Golf's so-called gentleman's game had been dragged into the mud, and McIlroy's fury was the mirror reflecting it. Weeks later, the apologies started trickling in from U.S. officials promising better enforcement for 2027 in Ireland. But by then, the damage was already viral. The Ryder Cup had become a meme war, a morality play, and a media storm, all starring one man who just wanted to play golf. What unfolded at Bethpage wasn't just a moment, it was a message. And when you see the full picture, it's impossible to unsee. So hit that like button, subscribe, share this story, and I'll see you on the next one, because this saga isn't over, and the next chapter could shake golf to its core.